If I was to start from scratch and design a business that would run in 4 hours a day, this is exactly what I would do. Hi, I'm Yasmin Varji. I'm the creator and author of Tiny Time Big Results, where I help small business owners, coaches, consultants, creatives, service business owners on how to run a thriving business in part-time hours. And I've been doing this for 14 years. And I want to share with you exactly what I have learned in that process so that you can absolutely access the shortcuts and avoid the pitfalls that I have fallen into. Because trust me, if there's a pitfall, I've fallen into it. So I want to kind of set the context for this because, I remember having a sales call a few months ago with somebody and they were like, it's impossible. You can't run a business in 4 hours a day, 20 hours a week. And I want to really counter that, first of all, because I've been doing it for the last 14 years. I've helped hundreds of my clients do this, as well as doing it for myself. And mine came out of a very real need of having my corporate job. I lost my corporate job through redundancy. I was made redundant at the end of 2011. I was the main breadwinner in our family. We had a 1-year-old son and we live in rural Ireland, right? So the chance of getting a similar kind of a job was just not going to be feasible at that time. And so I decided I was going to start my own business because even back in the day when I was like a teenager, I always had this vision that I wanted to do something in career-wise that would allow me great flexibility, allow me to be there for my family. And this was my opportunity to make it happen, right? I wish I could tell you that it was all plain sailing. It absolutely was not. And that's why I'm making this video because, I often think that, if I was to start all over again, what would I do differently? What would I really lock into to give me the momentum to really build something rather than kind of constantly chopping and changing, because that's what a lot of business owners do. For the first 2 years of my business, I was like in wilderness. I was talking to people, I was getting clients, but not really sure about what it is that I was actually offering, what was my unique selling point, what was my differentiator, none of that, right? And it got to the point when after the birth of my daughter, I was really frustrated. I was like, oh my God, how can I do this? Like, I've got such little time. My son was going to crash for 3 hours a day, and she was with me full time until she was 18 months, and then she went to crash for 3 hours a day. So I only ever had tiny time. And so it's been really my adventure over the last 14 years of, growing the business and seeing what actually it takes to build that part-time empire, because you're ambitious. You want things to happen. You want a legacy. You want to create a body of work. Like, you want to do work that really fills your heart and fills your spirit and your bank account, right? So isn't that the dream that everybody has? It's like, I get to do work that I really love. I get paid well for it. I get to live the life that I dream of. And this is what this is about. This has been my journey around how do I get to do the work that I really love, that I'm really good at. And it also matches up with what people are looking for and people are willing to pay for as well. And so that's really important because, we had 2 more kids. So we've got 3 kids altogether. They're 15, 12, and 9. And I've been building that business alongside raising my family. And so what I'm going to be sharing with you is very much lived experience, right? This is not me kind of being on some kind of pedestal and going, oh, I'm a guru, here, listen to me. This is me saying from my heart that, these are the things that I would absolutely focus on and the things that I would probably prioritize for later in the journey rather than trying to do everything all in one go, right? So let's talk about the first thing that I would absolutely lock in. And if if you've been in business for a few weeks, few months, even a few years, and you're still thinking, I haven't got this nailed down, then that's okay. You're in a good place, right? You're in the right place here. So the first thing that I would absolutely lock in is answering the question, what is the problem you solve for your ideal client, right? And who is that ideal client? I know you're probably thinking, oh my God, Yasmin, I've heard this so many times, but really and truly, I feel like if somebody had asked me that early on, like right at the beginning, and saying like, what's the problem you solve, I might not necessarily have had the answer straight away, but it certainly would put me on a different path in terms of understanding what it is that I was offering, what I could help people with. So what's the problem you solve? Because in business, that's what we do. We solve problems. We see a problem, we go, I can solve that because of my unique set of skills and experiences and talents. And so I'm going to create a solution for that. That's it. So if your tendency is that when you talk about what it is that you do, you go straight into this is my solution, but we're not really clear on the problem that you're solving, then this is a really good indicator for you. I remember having a conversation a few years ago with my eldest son, and he was talking about, he was coming up with all these ideas about what he could invent and things. And I always asked him that question of like, well, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? And the first time he looked at me like, huh? And I was like, but when you're inventing something, you're creating a solution for a problem. So what's the problem? Are you clear on what that problem looks like? So if you're a weight loss coach and you maybe have, maybe you were really successful at Slimming World, and then you said, right, I'm going to do something similar for my business, but what is it what's the problem that you're solving? Or, is it, because weight loss coach is so generic and it's so broad, is there a specific angle that you really, really want to hone in on? There are so many different angles. And for me, being super specific about what it is that you do is going to be massive. And there was a piece of advice that I got back in 2009, right? This was before I even, when I was still working in corporate, but I still had always this thing about like building something of my own. And I remember one of my very earliest mentors said, when you're talking about your niche, make it an inch wide and a mile deep so that you can talk forever really on this. And I love that, because that for me has been such an eye-opener. Like when I think of Tiny Time Big Results and all the things that I can talk about, helping business owners to build a business in part-time hours, I talk very much about the people that I work with, that, the people who are selling their knowledge, their skills, their expertise. But honestly, that is an inch wide and a mile deep. I can talk a lot about it, which is why I have a podcast and I have a book, etc. Right? So that's the first thing that I would absolutely get clear on, is what is the problem that I am solving for people, right? And getting really clear on that messaging, so that as soon as you say it to someone, people are like locked in and they go, oh, tell me more. I want to know more about how you do that. Or I know someone who'd really benefit from that. Because this is the bit that we always forget. Talking to people is the bit that gets people in, that gets you clients. Talking to people gets you clients. Trust me on this one, right? So for me, that's a huge one. And really think about how you want to be positioned in the marketplace. Like, how do you want people to see you? Because that's going to speak so much to what you actually do in your business. I can't stress this enough. This is really, really important stuff. And you want to really nail this down as early as you can, with the caveat that nothing is set in stone, right? This is not set in stone and that you can never change it, because you're going to evolve. As you can imagine, I've evolved over the last 14 years. And so that will happen. But you want to really lock that in, that messaging, that positioning. Like, I think of one of my very first, angles, and it was like irresistible women in business. Like, what on earth were you thinking, Yasmin? Like, really and truly, listen, I can only say I have learned from that. Okay, the second thing is, when you're trying to build a business in part-time hours, right? How you make money is a really important part of the story, right? Because you've got limited time. If you're working 4 hours a day, if you're working 20 hours a week, there's only so much of that time that you can actually give for delivery. And if you're trading time for money, then that means that you've got a cap on how much money you can actually make. So this is one of the important pieces around building that empire, building that business in part-time hours, is you have to create leveraged sources of income. Now, what I will say about that is, I would always say, and this applies whether you've been in business for a long time or not, but if you're like unsure, you're still unclear about what it is that you're doing, do the one-on-one work first, right? It will give you so much richness in what it is that you are actually doing for people, right? Honestly, people want to skip over this stage, and I want to absolutely tell you, please don't, because when you work with one-on-one with clients and you've got like a specific process that you take them through, things are going to come up in that work that you're going to be like, oh my God, I never even considered this. I didn't think about that. And that is going to make your process, your framework, your method so much better, right? And actually, doing the one-to-one, if you do it in the right way and you create a leveraged package where you're exchanging massive value, you're solving a high value problem, then you are going to have a really healthy income from just one-on-one alone, right? So not only are you going to have a healthy income, but you're also going to get so much knowledge from that. You're going to get so much feedback from that. That is going to inform your marketing. That's going to inform how you create your course, what kind of digital products you create, which are the things that you'll want to be thinking about, so that your earning potential is not always linked to you actually being present, right? So that's a really important one. So when you're thinking about your, what you're offering, get really clear. So when you've really locked down your messaging and your positioning and you're like, this is the problem I solve, then we want to get really clear on like, well, what is it? How do you take people from A to B? What does that process look like, right? And so what you're doing with that is you're thinking very much around, like if they're here and they're here, right? So how do I get them there? What does that process look like? Okay, so when you're in that piece, when you're thinking about that becomes your proprietary framework. That becomes your methodology, right? And that's a really, really important part of the process, because that becomes your trademark transformation. That becomes the thing that they are absolutely going to hone in on. And that's what your business is going to be based on, right? That's going to be what your business is absolutely based on. Your trademark transformation, the thing that you can do, the thing that is just like it's you, right? And so what that means is when you have your trademark transformation identified, you're then going to say, right, okay, so when I do this work with people, you do this one-to-one first, right? Exchange value, not time. Make sure that you're solving a high value problem. And then you can start thinking about, well, do I want to do this as a course? Do I want to do this as a group program? Do I want to do this as a mastermind? Do I want to create digital products? Like, there are so many different things that you can do. Do I want to write a book? Because that's another revenue stream. Right, so they're the first two things, right? So these are the things that I would absolutely lock in. It's around your messaging, it's around your offers, right? And getting really clear on what that looks like, because your offer suite is going to be the thing that determines, the profit and the income that you're going to be able to make. Right, so what is the third thing? So the third thing that I would absolutely recommend you do, and if I was starting from scratch, this is what I would do, right? I would make sure that I am building assets that sell for me around the clock, right? So that I don't always have to be live, right? So for example, if you're watching this on YouTube, here I am, I'm recording this. You might be watching this a year after I've recorded it, right? But that asset is valuable in my business because people get to know me, get to like me, hopefully, and you think, oh, I want to work with her, right? So this is what you want to be thinking about, is what assets can I build that allow me to live my life? Because if you're doing this in part-time hours, then that's a really big part of it. So what assets can I build, right? And those assets can be very simple ways of bringing people into your world, ways of nurturing them, ways of getting them to see what is possible for them. And then, they come and work with you. So assets can be free and they can be paid as well. But what they do is once they're out in the world, it's like a little secret sales army, right? They're working for you on your behalf. When I wake up sometimes and I look at my phone and I go, there's a little PayPal notification. I go, oh, I made a sale. I wonder what I sold, right? Because I've got assets out there that are working on my behalf, right? When you are running a business in part-time hours, which has been my reality for the last 14 years, it is so, so important to be thinking about, okay, and like really getting clear on what to focus on, because I know it's so easy to kind of like like you just get so busy, like, oh, I'm doing social media, or but you're really scrolling. Like, I do that too, right? So when you're thinking about what to really focus in on, right, because I want to give you less to do rather than giving you a massive to-do list, you think, okay, am I really clear on my messaging? Is this really dialed in, right? My positioning, how do I want to be seen in the world? When people look at my site or my content, like, what impression, what are they going to get from me? Right? Then you're thinking about, okay, how do I make money in this business, right? Am I solving a high value problem that's going to make people willing to invest at a higher level, right? And really and truly, like, higher ticket items, and for me, high ticket is like anything above like 2K, right? They're a brilliant way to really get started, because what happens is, if your goal is 5K a month, you need, only a few clients to help you hit that goal. Low ticket requires volume, right? And low ticket has its place. That's for a different conversation. That's for a different video, right? And then really getting clear on, well, how am I selling? And so, yes, there will be some elements where you're doing live, where you're posting content, you're meeting people and networking, you're going to conferences, whatever it might be. But then there should also be assets that are selling for you 24/7. So if you met somebody at an event and they're like, oh, this is really interesting, and then they go home and check you out and there's nothing there, there's no social media presence, and I'm not saying they have to be on social media all the time, but like, there's nothing for them to get their teeth into to really get a feel for you, then that's actually holding you back, because they could binge consume you and your content like a Netflix series, right? And make them feel like, oh, I need to work with this person in a really short space of time. But when you don't have that, and you don't have anything that's going to like kind of really get them feeling like, oh God, I love this. Oh, I want more. I want to work with her. Then you're relying on follow-ups and like, oh, do you want to have a coffee? And it just makes that whole process so much longer. Okay, so they're the three things that I would absolutely focus in on, lock in on, to make sure that you are actually getting the biggest bang for your buck, basically, right? Because the pitfalls are the opposite, right? If you have a dull, generic, vague message, you're not clear on the problem that you solve, right? Or if the way that you make money in your business is really tied to your time, right? Or if everything that you do in your business is super manual, like all the emails that you're writing, everything is manual. You've no automations, you've no simple systems running in the background. I'll give you an example, actually. I was trying to book a session recently, and I was like, we were doing loads of back and forths, and she was like, okay, can you tell me a bit more? And honestly, it felt like really hard work on my part, and I actually just abandoned the process, right? Whereas if she had a booking link and a form that I could have filled in easily and quickly, then I know that I'd probably be working with her right now, right? So you want to make it easy for people to get to know you, get to like you, and trust you, and for them to make the decision of like, I want to work with that person. And this is the work that I do with my clients, like all the way from when we're nailing down your messaging, your trademark transformation, and then creating those, those packages, those high value packages, right? And then building those authority assets. These are the things that will build your business in part-time hours. And I work with my clients in a couple of different ways of doing this in my 12-month program, which is called Rich by Design, because it is absolutely about building a rich business and life. So your business isn't taking over your life. You get to do all the things that you like to do. You can be there for your kids, especially in the holidays, so that's Rich by Design, and I'll pop the link below so you can read more about it. And I also do this work one-to-one, so you get my eyes on your business, and this is the deepest level of work that we do. This is like the most intimate, private, one-to-one work. So if you want to know more about that, then I'd recommend booking a call and see if we're a good fit. This is what is required when you want to have that beautiful, thriving, profitable business in 20 hours a week right? It is absolutely possible. I'm here. Hundreds of my clients have also done the same thing. So it is absolutely possible. As long as you nail those core vital ingredients. And, imagine that. Just imagine that you get a business where you get to do the work that you absolutely love, that you're really good at, and you get really paid well for it. And you have time for the other stuff, for the school runs, for, hospital appointments. I feel like I'm doing so many hospital appointments these days. Please, God, they'll be over soon. Right, but this is all possible for you. So if you want to know more, click the links below, and I will see you the next time.